Crimea is bursting into flames. Ukraine's unmanned aerial and naval vehicles have dismantled Russia's early warning chain. Considered its invisible shield. FPV drones, launched from unmanned boats, targeted a high-speed landing craft, 3 critical air defense radars, and a secret radar dome on Mount Ai Petri. Moscow's southern sentinels have fallen silent, and a major breach has been opened in the defense wall. Kerch Bridge was suddenly closed to traffic. The entire peninsula, from Jankoy to Feodosia, has been placed on war alert. How did Ukraine bring down this radar network in Crimea? And what will this move change in the next phase of the war? On August 7, the Phantom UAV unit affiliated with Ukraine's defense intelligence completed the final preparations for a complex and high-risk operation targeting the southern ridges of Crimea. This elite unit, which had been behind the deepest range and most effective unmanned aerial attacks throughout the year, had this time devised a multi-layered attack chain across the Black Sea. The plan was based on the convergence of unmanned speedboats infiltrating from the surface and FPV-class attack drones descending from the sky under a single command network. These boats, unlike standard reconnaissance platforms, were modified to carry bombardment drones capable of taking off from the sea, with rail systems attached to their hulls. Prior to the operation, the Phantom team analyzed the radar blind spots on the southern coast of Crimea, coastal acoustics, and the patrol cycles of the Pantsir S1 air defense batteries step by step. Day and night tests were conducted to measure how the wavelength changes in the Black Sea would reflect on the waterline of the boat hulls. The hulls of the boats were fitted with a special coating that created broken reflections on radar screens instead of leaving a clear silhouette on the sea surface. As a result, Russian radars along the coast saw not an approaching attack platform, but the irregular glimmers created by wave reflections. Each surface boat entered the first turning point using silent electric propellers. The locks of the rail systems integrated into the hull moved into position upon receiving an encrypted signal from the command center. Safety hooks and silent launch pistons were checked one last time. This system was designed to enable the drones to take off without vibration even over the sea. The first wave of takeoffs was programmed to destroy the designated maritime target. This target was the Project 02510 BK-16 fast attack boat, a key component of Crimea's coastal defense system. The Project 02510 BK-16 was a symbol of Russia's rapid response capability at sea. Capable of carrying 19 soldiers each, reaching speeds of 40 knots, and designed for sudden landings on the coastline, these assault boats were the backbone of Moscow's special operations doctrine of hit-and-run missions. But on August 7th, in the southern Black Sea, this pride and joy was caught defenseless at the dock. When the Phantom unit's FPV drones locked onto the target, explosion waves rapidly spreading across the waterline ripped through the hull. Flames quickly engulfed all compartments. Whether the ship sank or was towed away with severe damage, the message was clear. Even Russia's most modern and elite naval platforms are no longer untouchable. With a replacement cost of $6 million, this loss was as much a strategic blow as it was a material one. But the real turning point of the operation did not take place at sea, but on the mainland. This time, the targets were critical Russian radars such as Nebo SVU, Podlet K1, and 96L6E. Though these names may sound like technical codes, their significance to Moscow was clear: airspace awareness and threat detection capabilities. The Nebo SVU was a mobile long-range radar capable of detecting targets up to 400 kilometers away, specifically designed to track high-altitude stealth aircraft. Podlet K1 was the front line of defense, specializing in catching low-flying drones and cruise missiles. The 96L6E was the brain of the S-400 batteries. Without this radar, the system loses its ability to track hundreds of targets simultaneously and create a 3D tactical picture. Phantom's chain of drones struck these 3 systems almost simultaneously. Within minutes, radar antennas were shattered, data links were silenced, and Russia's airspace awareness over Crimea was dramatically weakened. But the heaviest blow was dealt at an altitude of 1,200 meters above sea level on Mount Ai Petri. Here stood a massive dome constructed to protect the radar facility of the 3rd Radio Technical Regiment. This dome was not only designed to withstand harsh weather conditions, but also to evade satellite reconnaissance. When Ukrainian drones targeted and destroyed the dome, they also silenced the strategic data from the radar inside, which monitored air traffic across the Black Sea. When this radar fell, Russia did not just lose a base, it lost its constant watchful eye over the Black Sea. The simultaneous disabling of 3 radars did not just blind the local garrison, it opened new corridors in the sky for Ukraine. For months, Russia was able to detect Ukrainian drone activity in advance and protect sensitive areas with its radar coverage in Crimea. But this advantage has now been almost completely eliminated. The disabling of the radars and integrated air defense nodes is creating large gaps in Russia's air defense architecture over Crimea and the northwestern Black Sea. These gaps dramatically increase the likelihood that long-range cruise missiles, such as Storm Shadow and Scalp EG, as well as much more advanced indigenous kamikaze UAVs, will reach their targets. Ukraine has been striking such facilities in a planned manner for years, but the strike on Ai Petri is on a different scale. This point at the southern tip of Crimea covered not only the peninsula, but also a wide radar surveillance line stretching along Russia's western coast along the Black Sea.
Попали, да, все. Вот, в районе Роснефти. Вот, заправка Роснефть на...
Breaking this chain gives Ukraine the opportunity to intensify long-range UAV attacks in an area that includes Russia's favorite resort cities, including Sochi. Indeed, there has been a noticeable increase in drone sorties targeting this region in recent months. The deployment of FPV-type UAVs here provides a distinct tactical advantage. Traditional air defense systems struggle to adapt to these platforms, which are capable of high speeds and low-altitude maneuvers. Countermeasures developed against FPV drones on the front lines have not been deployed with the same intensity in Crimea. This allows FPVs to find much more open terrain here. Even with limited countermeasures in place, these drones can reach critical targets and disable radar antennas, command posts, and mobile batteries. Furthermore, the total value of Russia's losses in the latest attack is estimated to exceed $50 million. On the other side of the coin is the Kerch Bridge. Following the explosions, military and civilian traffic on the Kerch Bridge came to a standstill. All convoys approaching the bridge from the Tumen direction were suddenly stopped. Russian railways announced that the line between the Kavkaz station and the bridge entrance had been temporarily suspended for security checks. But these checks went beyond a mere security procedure, bringing all military and logistical movements toward Crimea to a standstill for hours. Satellite data from the time of the incident confirmed the formation of a 3,500-car train queue north of the Tumen station. Visual reflections clearly showed that railway traffic had been physically blocked. Although the alarm lasted only 38 minutes, this brief interruption is expected to deal a heavy blow to war logistics. Disruptions may occur in the supply chain for the daily ammunition needs of the 29th Combined Arms Army. At Optine, one of the Southern Front's key ammunition depots, military freight trains loaded with 152mm artillery shells could not be moved until the evening hours. This situation directly impacted not only long-range strike capabilities, but also that day's artillery planning. The situation on the road network was even more complex. In addition to the reinforcements advancing towards Crimea, convoys of wounded soldiers turning north were also stuck in the same traffic jam. The disruption of traffic on the bridge, one of the main arteries of the medical evacuation chain, also paralyzed the healthcare system behind the front lines. Mobile medical teams mobilized for the mobilization were forced to wait on the eastern side of the Kerch Bridge. This reduced the chances of intervention at critical moments, putting the lives of many seriously wounded people at risk. The social and psychological turmoil lasted much longer than the explosions. Civilians living in Crimea were forced to wake up to 2 different alarm sounds in just 30 minutes. The first was the classic warning that the air defense systems had been activated. The second was fire sirens announcing that flames were spreading. This double threat that came with the night left residents defenseless against both the danger from the sky and the panic spreading on the ground. Some civilians living in Kerch said, "We turned into a closed box overnight. The bridge looks open, but no one can cross it." Such messages became not only a means of sharing information, but also a barometer of public morale. Since 2018, the Kremlin had been constructing a narrative of a security umbrella for those living in Crimea. But the explosions pierced this umbrella, both physically and symbolically. Now people are afraid not only of the bombings, but of the system itself. State television rolled out the classic script that same morning. The defense systems worked successfully. No targets were hit. But this rhetoric was contradicted by columns of smoke rising into the sky from different cities in Crimea. Visual evidence invalidated official statements, and the perception that the Kremlin is hiding the truth began to gain strength among the Crimean people. Even more striking is the demographic makeup of this population. A significant portion of the 2.3 million people living on the peninsula today are civilians who were relocated from within Russia after 2014. For years, the Kremlin has been telling this group that they are safe here. But now, alarm bells, smoke, and closed roads have shattered that sense of security. The most serious scenario being discussed behind the scenes is a new wave of migration. Some of the people who came to Crimea have even started saying, "If our homes are not safe, let's go back to a place far away from the war." According to press reports, many officers' families have secretly or gradually returned to mainland Russia. According to a report by German broadcaster Deutsche Welle, based on diplomatic sources, Moscow has introduced a priority quota system for the families of security personnel stationed in Crimea. Initially, around 10,000 people were targeted for relocation to Krasnodar and Stavropol. The partisan network reported that Bars reserve units were conducting secret patrols in civilian clothing in the bays of Sevastopol, that security measures had been increased, and that equipment was being hidden. Additionally, all leave days for military personnel have been cancelled. According to a statement by an ATESH agent directly linked to air defense systems, air defense personnel have begun evacuating their families to military camps in the southern military district. This evacuation order can be seen as a sign that the security situation in the region is critical. It is alleged that the Russian administration plans to evacuate approximately 250,000 people in the first phase, including military families, defense industry technicians, railway and port personnel, children, and the elderly. According to an analysis published by Forbes Russia, the Black Sea Fleet headquarters has a family load of 30,000 people, half of whom have already left between May and July 2025. In addition to military personnel, ordinary Russians on the peninsula are also leaving Crimea. Reports show that the number of Russian citizens who have recently left the peninsula has reached 100,000. With the latest developments, this number is expected to increase further. The total capacity is 40,000 vehicles per day in both directions, but after the explosions in 2024, traffic was reduced by half on the single support belt. The same situation is ongoing today. However, traffic on the peninsula remains gridlocked. The Kerch Bridge is also a risky alternative for those seeking to flee Crimea. This is because the bridge falls within the range of Storm Shadow and Attack MS missiles. Ukraine stated in May 2025 that it is maintaining its strike capability against Kerch. The railway section is still limited by repairs. It has been reduced to 2 trains per hour, or 4,000 passengers. In other words, all exits from the peninsula are about to close. The Putin administration has developed a 2-pronged response strategy following the latest attacks on the Crimean Peninsula. The first step was to move the Bastion P coastal defense systems belonging to the Black Sea Fleet to the northern mouth of the Kerch Strait. Although these systems are technically equipped with anti-ship missiles and are effective for coastal defense, this relocation is more of a blockade reflex than a direct counterattack. In particular, the ban on unauthorized civilian vessels passing through the Kerch Strait until further notice has led to both psychological and logistical constraints in the area. Small tonnage ferry traffic between the Azov Sea and Crimea has been partially blocked as a result of this decision. Thus, not only military but also civilian supply chains have come under pressure. The second response came from the Air Defense Wing. Existing batteries of S-400 Triumph systems were concentrated around the Kerch Bridge. But this concentration does not mean effective defense. Due to the limited radar infrastructure in the region, the classic barrage fire tactic cannot be used against cruise missiles such as Storm Shadow, which have low altitude and high accuracy capabilities. The systems often fail to engage the target, missing the missiles as they pass, and reports indicate that the defense ramps are being destroyed rather than inflicting damage after the attack. The Ukrainian General Staff's goal is not just instant damage, but constant pressure. In the last 6 months, a chain of targets has been hit in Crimea: the hangars at the Saki Air Base, a storage facility north of Simferopol, fuel tanks in Belbek, a radar node in Jankoy, and now the AFIP Kerch line. This sequence is known in NATO doctrine as a serial deep strike. It condemns the enemy to repair one target while another is destroyed. The repair budget cannot keep pace with the establishment of new defense units. Thus, Russia's fortification replenishment cycle slows down due to the growing foreign exchange deficit. This series of attacks has brought not only Russia's defense reflexes back to the table, but also Ukraine's vision for Crimea. The peninsula, long considered untouchable, is now at the center of encirclement scenarios, not only psychologically but also physically. Crimea, which was supplied via land links in the early years of the war, is now under pressure on three fronts: land, air, and sea. The Melitopol-Tokmak-Mariupol land link is now within the extended GMLRS range of HIMARS and M270 systems. This means that every bridge, road junction, and convoy is now a target. Meanwhile, sea transport is also unsafe. Bayraktar TB2 reconnaissance data, combined with the Akhancher's munitions range, is turning the northern Black Sea into a minefield for Russia. And the air. The Crimean sky is already pierced by Storm Shadow, Scalp, and other cruise missiles. The destruction of radar systems has led to a chaotic situation where S-400 batteries are defending without targeting. An F-16 fleet could completely change the picture. Jets taking off from bases in Khmelnytsky and Poltava, in particular, could create a closure that would leave no open window in Russian airspace, with 24-hour combat air patrol missions starting from the north of the peninsula. This would provide not only air superiority, but also a strategic umbrella for armored units to launch a ground offensive. But there is one clear prerequisite for this scenario: a logistical break. As soon as the Kerch Bridge and the Chonhar Pass are cut off, the flow of ammunition, fuel, personnel reinforcements, and even food for the Russian garrison of approximately 200,000 people will be largely disrupted. Alternative supply routes are either risky by sea or under the shadow of HIMARS on the land side. Looking at the focus of today's attacks, it is clear that these critical logistical points are being targeted. In summary, whether Crimea will truly return remains to be seen. What are your thoughts on this matter? We would appreciate it if you could share your opinions in the comments. Thank you for watching.